that are going on there. Great. So before we jump further in, I'd just like to paint a bit of a perspective on this issue. One of the reasons that the African Union, SUA, and ICC BASIS wanted to work together on this topic is, as you all know, we're in the midst of the 2030 agenda, the UN Sustainable Development Goals agenda. And while ICT wasn't an individual goal, what we feel very strongly is that the Sustainable Development Goals are actually all empowered and facilitated with the help of ICT if we put the right environment in place to enable their use and utility in that area. So when you look at the gender inclusion goal, one of the things that we feel very strongly is that ICT is an enabler of advancing women's, it can be an important enabler in advancing women's economic empowerment. And well, I think there's no question that there are all sorts of social and fairness and equality goals towards advancing gender equality. There is also an undeniable benefit to our economies and our growth and development perspectives. The McKinsey Institute has found that we would reap $12 trillion in terms of GDP development by 2025 if we were able to bring more women into the economic mainstream. And so I think what we would like to talk about today are the different perspectives from different stakeholders in enabling that advancement and the economic empowerment of women. And ICC recently has done some policy work around this question, and one of the most interesting case studies we found to illustrate the role of different stakeholders in ICT development and advancement and policy making for really effective and impactful policy outcome was this case example of women's economic empowerment. So I hope that by listening to our very well diverse and well experienced panelists, we will have the opportunity to explore that. So Sophie, do we have Sira on the line? So through our WebEx system, we have the opportunity of speaking with our colleagues in India who are part of the Self-Employed Women's Association. We have Rima Nanavati from Siwa on the line. Rima, can you hear us? Good morning, Rima. Can you hear us? Okay. So while we work on that, I'm going to move ahead, and we'll come back to Rima. The exploration that we want to do at the moment is looking at how we can leverage ICT to support economic empowerment, looking at the role different stakeholders are playing, and talking a little bit about some of the challenges. So I'm going to turn now to Ambassador Tobias Feakin of the Government of Australia to share a few perspectives with us.
Well, thanks very much for the invitation today. It's really generous of you to extend an invitation to the Australian government to talk a little bit about how we look at gender issues within cybersecurity and also digital enablement. I think the first thing to say is that in Australia ourselves, we're not immune to essentially problems of not harnessing a great deal of the available workforce down under. We're estimating that within Australia there's only about 11% of the cybersecurity workforce that's actually filled by women currently, and that's just not good enough because we have a conservative estimate of about 11,000 jobs that are still unfulfilled, and that's an incredibly conservative estimate. It's likely that it's far higher than that. So we're, if you like, shooting ourselves in the foot that we're not harnessing broader society. So we're trying to do a range of things within Australia to try and change that picture. And what we're trying to do is not miss out on the potential for the kind of innovation that actually broadening the workforce will bring into play. So we have a vision, which is that we want to promote, inspire and support women to recognise and embrace the opportunity of a career in cyber affairs. Doesn't just have to be in cybersecurity. There's a whole range of different areas of work that are where we need skills. We're trying to do that through a partnership approach, which is embodied in our cyber strategy, which is working with academia, civil society, private sector, and we're running a range of programs to try and implement positive change within our society. One of the partnerships that we've built is with PwC, Commonwealth Bank, Telstra, who are the biggest telco in Australia, the University of New South Wales, and a range of other women's security networks. And we're bringing together young women to provide mentoring and positive inspiration for career paths within the Australian system, just to make clear all the different options that are available, because at times I think still it's unclear what the pathways might actually be for a career in this space. And that can be true whoever you are, I think, but I think especially for young women when they're in, going through that formative stage of decisions about education paths. Having had staff of mine participate in it, and I think they've come back and said it's been quite remarkable how just providing a bit of understanding of the different options that are available has helped a great deal. So we've set ourselves some ambitious targets. We want within 5 years to have filled at least 30% of the workforce and skills gaps with women, and we think that's something that's attainable. So that's the domestic setting, but obviously internationally, as you rightly say, there's the Sustainable Development Goals, which do place ICTs at the heart of that transformation and bringing access to economic benefits, social benefits that we are very keen to assist with. We made that central to something called our International Cyber Engagement Strategy. There's a whole chapter on development issues, and we've made a very firm commitment to making sure that gender issues are squarely front and center of that chapter as well. And we do have an ongoing commitment in all our international engagements to make sure that we're at the forefront of efforts to promote gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. So how do we do that? Well, through all of our aid programs, we have to consider issues related to gender equality, and any application that comes in has to be cognizant of that and have some contribution to women's empowerment within its work. Our minister, the foreign minister, she has set us targets of requiring at least 80% of all investments, regardless of their objectives, to effectively address gender issues. And I think having those kinds of ambitious targets to try and meet in the midterm is really incredibly important. How have we done that in the cyber area? Well, as I say, all of our projects now have to incorporate an appreciation and a contribution towards the empowerment of women through the programs that they deliver. But we've also increased the amount of funding into that program. So we've increased funding from 4 million over 4 years to 14 million over the remainder of that period, which will now be 3 years left. And with the program, it seeks to ensure that where Australian aid programs use technology, whether they address poverty or expand access to quality education, achieve gender equality and social inclusion, they take into account the long-term security and resilience of technologies as well. There's a whole range of case studies that maybe we can have a talk about during our discussion of where we think this has worked quite well. But in a nutshell, if you like, that's the way we're looking at it as a government, but it's a big priority issue for us now. The main reason being it just still seems pretty astounding that we're in 2017 and still trying to bridge this gap, but that's where we are, so we're trying to do as much as we can. Thank you.
Right. So I'm now going to turn to Joyce Doyle from ISOC, Internet Society. Do you want to carry on and give us a perspective from the technology sector?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Internet Society, as many of you know, stands for an open, globally connected, secure, trusted internet for everyone. It's a big statement, but that is our mission, our vision, and that's really what we aim for. Now, the part of that is actually looking at making sure that everybody, as stated, is connected, has access to the internet. And I'm not going to bore you with numbers. They make good tweets and things like that, but I'll actually, half of the population is still not online, as we know. And if you look at the World Bank, approximately 40% of the world workforce is made up of women, with half of the population not actually connected to the internet and not taking advantage of the opportunities that the internet provides for economic development and for workforce opportunities. We have a challenge. Now, I think the ambassador actually already painted a very nice picture of the situation, both domestically and globally. But I wanted to start with telling a story, because at the end of the day, it's about people. And the story I would like to share is of one of our IGF ambassadors. We have a number of people here at the IGF from across the globe who are learning about internet governance, who are discovering internet governance, and who are making amazing contributions by their stories only. So Josephine Melissa from Kenya is she's from Kibera, one of the biggest slums in Nairobi. And she works with an organization called Tuna Panda. And we supported them with some funding for Tuna Panda Net, actually, which is a free wireless network that is made by or that is created by the community in Kibera and is used by the community for the improvement of the community. It's all about the community at the end. They actually use the network for training, education sessions, content creation. They create Wikipedia entrances, for example, in local language. They use open source MOOCs to provide training to their community. And they also hold workshops for young women to create interest in computing in Nairobi. And as the ambassador said, it's sometimes just explaining what the opportunities are to actually create that interest. What they actually see is that the ultimate goal is obviously employment of those young women. And about 80% of their graduates have gained meaningful employment after that training because they discovered an opportunity that they didn't know was even existing before. Now, what she also told me was that it goes beyond just talking about access to the internet. It goes beyond just explaining what the opportunities are. Some of the issues that they're facing are very practical. Finance is one of them. And so having access to microloans, for example, is one of the things that is crucial for the success of economic empowerment and employment for those young women once they actually understand that they want to create their own business online. Very often women have no access, in many communities, women have no access to bank accounts, to the traditional bank accounts. And so they have to be creative in how they actually can find funding for their entrepreneur initiatives. I'm sure some of you have heard of table banking, where women actually come together, put their savings literally on a table, and create a way to finance amongst themselves their initiatives. Now, all of that sounds really good, but it also actually adds to the complexity because those women obviously, not obviously, but in many cases have no accounting training. And so they face a lot of difficulties, and actually once they have their businesses up and running, they have the access to the internet, they have an opportunity for business, how do they manage their own finances? Very often they find that women struggle to understand the difference between the personal finances and the online business or whatever business they have created. And so basic training is alongside the ICT training is very, very important for the success of all of that. So what we see is that ICT is also supporting communication, is creating, and we saw it very nicely in the video as well, is that handicraft is happening online. What we see is that women actually communicate with each other and actually talk with each other, learn from each other, stay in touch with their families. When families maybe go to the big cities to work, it's actually giving them an opportunity to stay in touch. So what we see is that ICT is really playing an enabling role in socioeconomic development. It's an enabling role in all of the SDGs, as you rightly mentioned. I think it's an enabler. It's not the solution to everything, and we need to be very conscious of that the environment and the socioeconomic circumstances play a crucial role in the overall picture of all of this. The role that ISOC is playing in all of that Internet Society is playing in all of that, is obviously our core goes to the access and enabling access to everyone to the Internet. And so we do a lot of advocacy in international fora for increased inclusion of women in Internet-related discussions like here. But also encourage governments to create an environment that enables access. And enabling access can be in alternative ways. As I mentioned, the community networks, for example, play a crucial role in rural communities where there may not be an interest of current telcos to invest for financial reasons or others. But so enabling, making sure that we have an environment that enables alternative ways of connectivity is very, very important to all of this, and very important to the inclusion of women in our economic workforce. So we have a couple of initiatives that I also wanted to share. We just launched a women's special interest group, which is open for everyone to join. So this is a little piece of advertising while I'm doing that. So it's an amazingly dynamic group of women who decided that they wanted to have a place to communicate with each other and find solutions for problems that they have within their communities or beyond. It's not a women-only special interest group, so gentlemen, you're more than welcome to sign up as well. We need you. I think it's very important to say that the gender equality and gender inclusion discussion should not stop with women. It is very important that we include our gentlemen among the table as well. We are also a partner of the Equals partnership run by ITU and UN Women. GSMA is also in there. With the partnership, we're also trying to find a more cohesive approach to issues that relate to access, skills, leadership, to actually provide gender equality and gender empowerment. So those are some of the things where Internet Society is hopefully helping to try and make a difference in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am told that our colleagues in India are on the line, so let's go back to them. Go. Good morning, Rima. Can you hear us?
Oh, she's here. She's on the. Here.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Hello, Rima. You have the floor. No? All right. Yeah, thank you. Hi, Rima. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We can all hear you now, I believe. I can't hear her actually. Can you hear her? No. Okay. So we're still struggling a little bit with the technical difficulties. We'll work a little harder to solve that, and we will move to our next speaker for now. We're working very hard on technical connections and connectivity, and we're demonstrating the willingness to do so. And I'm sure we'll get there. But in the meantime, I'd like to go and find out a little bit about who we've got in the room and where you're coming from in joining us. So if you look at some of the examples and the ideas around using ICT to leverage women's economic empowerment, how many of you are in this room because you have examples or experiences to share on that topic specifically? Great. And in your organizations or businesses or governments, are you charged with a project or an activity specifically in this area? Are you focused on that work? How many of you are? If you could just raise your hand. Great. And so then I'm going to ask those of you that are in the room that are coming because you don't know as much as you'd like to know and are sort of seeking ideas or inspiration from other people's activities. How many of those people are in the room? Okay. All right. Great. Well, we will hopefully try and satisfy all those different needs. I'm going to turn to, have we got Nima now speaking? Sorry, I thought I heard her. Is Nima on? Is it working now? Okay, so they need 1 more minute. And we will go ahead to our next speaker, Mata. I thought of you a lot, Mata, as people were throwing out the question of funding, and I know you've got some words on that. Mata's one of our co-organizers who's working with an organization that's trying to implement some of the goals and initiatives of the African Union. I'll let you speak for yourself, Mata. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Okay. I will speak about some ways we want to use to empower women through ICT. I am working for NEPAD, the New Partnership for African Development. NEPAD is the implementation organization of the Agenda 2063. In this agenda, one of our goals is to empower women. And we need now to empower women through infrastructure like ICT. And then for that, we have also the project with Axis. The Axis is the internet exchange point of Africa. With Axis, we think we will have internet through Africa, because you know communication is very expensive in Africa. To call from one country for another is very, very expensive. Now with Axis, we will have an internet point in each country. And we think this can be used to reduce the internet cost. And women are very powerful. If internet cost is very slow, women can use it to work. Because there are a lot of women are in informal sector, and they are in rural areas where we haven't. Sometimes we can't call. Sometimes, if you are in the city and you want to call in the village, sometimes it is not possible. There is sometimes one point in the village where you can have a connection to call and to speak with your correspondent. And also, women are in third sector. If the connection is in all Africa, we can reduce the cost of trade in each sector. And then to do that, in NEPAD, we have, it is a new program. A gender program is new in NEPAD to implement gender in infrastructure sector as communication, energy, and each other. And then we start the job now. There isn't a lot of fund to do that. And what we want to do is to increase ability for women to work from home, because sometimes they have children to take care of, and they can't go outside to work and take care of the family. Also, to improve employment opportunity for women in ICT sector. Women are one part of the world. We can't say that men have to work in ICT sector and not women. Women also have this ability to work in the ICT sector. They can add the value in this sector. And also to increase ability of informal sector women to shift to the formal sector. As I said now, on the West, a lot of women who work in Africa, but a lot of her in informal sector. They need to come in formal sector, and then if ICT, if the cost of the internet is very cheap, they can do it easily. And to improve also global market access for cross women through e-commerce, transforming a traditional gender roles, improve access of women, especially rural women, to distance learning and distance work program. There's a lot of programs around the world. And if you can't have access, it's very difficult. I take my own example. I was working in Côte d'Ivoire, and I hear someday that there is a workshop here in Geneva with an university. I write, because I see, I can solve the information, I write to them to have information about this training. And the training was e-learning. And because I have access to internet, this was easy for me to participate to the training. If in Africa a lot of women have access to internet, they can have a lot of, they can participate to a lot of workshops to improve the capacity. And improve ability for the sharing of experience among women's organizations. Some have experience, some haven't experience. And we have to share this experience to encourage others to come in ICT sector. And then this is what we want to do in Nepal to attain the goals of the Agenda 2063, which is very important to attain also the SDG. Okay. And we hope to have a fund to to realize our goals in Nepal. This is what I want to share with you.
Thank you very much. I think there's more and more we have to explore, and I hope we get to dialogue and exchange a little bit more. I'm going to give our other speakers a chance to make some remarks, and then I'm sure we're all accumulating a number of questions that we can start bouncing around. I'm going to turn now to Will Hudson of Google. Will, similarly, if you want to talk a little bit about the question of ICT and women's empowerment, some challenges, some case studies, to the extent that you have them.
Great. Excuse me. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thanks for everyone being here on a fun, snowy day, bright and early in the morning, to talk about an important issue. I just wanted to take a minute at the beginning to sort of underscore something that we've heard from each of my distinguished, co-panelists in one way or another, which is that to address this challenge, and I think everyone accepts and recognizes the challenge. No one is going to be able to do it alone. There's a need for partnerships. There's a need for a multi-stakeholder approach to it, where you're involving not just the private sector, not just government, not just civil society, but not just the technical community, but everyone together to sort of come at this in the ways that make sense for them. And that's certainly been Google's experience. Google's mission, as I think many people know, is to make the world's information universally accessible and useful. And universally accessible and useful doesn't mean just men or just a portion of women. It means universally accessible and useful. And so we view this as something core to sort of who we are and what we're about, both as a company and as a group of people that care a lot about the world. And so we have a variety of different approaches to this issue, sort of tailored to different aspects of the problem. There's not a one-size-fits-all model, is I guess what I'm saying. There's not one program at Google designed to sort of address this issue. We have a Made with Code program designed to sort of address the pipeline problem, the STEM education issue. We have programs that encourage women entrepreneurs around the world to sort of take skills that they've learned and take their ideas to market. And importantly, it's a global market now, thanks to the internet, not just a local one. And that there are different approaches for different communities, thinking, urban versus rural and things like that. But what I thought I would do is, rather than talk about a bunch of different things in not any detail at all, talk about one thing in some level of detail. And that's our program in India, and hopefully this is a good segue into Rima's discussion coming up, where we're helping women get online. And essentially this was designed to address the fact that 2/3 of the world population don't have access to the internet. Of that, 2/3 of those are women. And in India, the numbers are even more stark. 17% of women are online in India, and the number decreases even more dramatically as you get out into the rural areas. And so, as a company, we're committed to bridging this gender gap by enabling women to help use the internet for their own benefit and for the benefit of their communities. So Google partnered, again, to use the partnership, to underscore that again, partnered with several local nonprofits that understood the community, understood local dynamics, knew who key influencers would be, and some other companies, including Tata and Intel, to launch a program called Internet Sati. And it's a fairly simple idea. It's essentially cycle carts, bicycles with internet-enabled phones and tablets in the back. And women influencers trained by Google go around to villages to show them how to use the internet. It's a fairly simple concept, but it's that first step. And what we found is, again, it's finding trusted people in these communities that understand what's going on, that are the ones that are the best positioned to be that initial touch point. Not Google from, Mountain View or any other company or government, from some remote area, but someone that these folks know. And then in turn, the concept is to train the villagers how to use it so that they then can go out and train their communities and their networks. To date, this program has started a cycle of education that's reached around 300,000 villages, and we're just getting started. So again, this isn't to say that's the one-size-fits-all or this is going to solve all the problems, but it's again that initial step. And just to give a little bit of color, I liked your idea of the stories. Bougie is one of our best trainers. She's in her late 20s. She lives in a remote village. She lives with her in-laws and 2 daughters. She had never used a smartphone, wanted to become a sati, and took lessons from us and is now one of our best trainers. She's trained over 1,000 people at this point in her cycle. And among the people she's trained was a neighbor who's a seamstress that used what the internet showed her, how to make more intricate sari designs. That was her livelihood. And through that, she's made more intricate sari designs and as a result charged 3 times what she used to be charging for it. So again, it's little stories sort of building the foundation for future growth. And just to sort of go back and level up again, sort of lessons that we've learned from this experience. One of them is, again, just the importance of a local context, using existing real-world networks, not trying to implant something artificial or new onto the process, but to think about how do these existing networks, which are already so important, how can they be used to talk about the internet's power and actually get this into the hands of more women. Partnerships, again, no one can do it alone. Google partnered with local nonprofits and local industry partners to make this happen, because I think we appreciated that we didn't we could identify the problem, but we weren't necessarily sure the best way to make the solution happen, and that was important. And then again, I think something that people often forget, which is that the internet isn't this thing on high existing divorce from reality. It's something that affects real world people, real world jobs, real world problems. And so to relate to that, you have to use offline resources to complement the online resources that you're helping give. And in the SATU program, you know, this wasn't web-based training. It was people gathering together in the real world, in-person gatherings. There was phone support that we offered because while internet penetration wasn't very high, mobile penetration was. And so it provided an additional recourse for people to take advantage of these things. So local context, partnerships, and offline complementing the online are sort of the three big takeaways for us. Happy to talk about more any of that later, but would rather hear from folks in the room about what their experiences are.
Thanks so much, Will, for that. We are going to now hear from Kate Doyle from an organization called Promundo. And hopefully, Kate's going to be, I think, just by audio. So hopefully our tech will support us. And I'm going to ask you just to use these in order to hear Kate. We can hear you. That's great. Thank you so much, Kate, for participating. Lots of useful, thoughtful material in that, and probably many, many more questions. So I'd like to open the floor to our participants to ask questions of any of the speakers who have participated so far, and or to throw in your own anecdotes from your experiences on women's economic empowerment and the leveraging of ICT. Great.
Thank you. This is Dr. Subhi Chaturvedi. For the record, I come from India. I head Public Affairs and Policy for the Cellular Operators Association of India. This is the industry association which has members with telecommunications, internet, and technology expertise. In my previous avatar, I used to be a professor at Delhi University working with young women, largely looking at initiatives that were looking at access, that were looking at ICT for sustainable development. One of the key areas that we've noticed where we take these conversations which are taking place offline and in real spaces is the taking back of public spaces, whether you're online or you're offline as a woman. Many of these have resulted in violence, where when we have men on the panel, it's greatly encouraging. This is a topic that's very close to my heart. So a lot of these questions, even when we're looking at projects which are great success stories like the Internet Sati, in India, renewable energy, power, access to affordable data, a device where you can actually work and own and have control of that device. A lot of times when we're seeing choices being made, whether it's the young girl in the house or the son, the mother is often devoid of access to technology because her place is in the kitchen. So when we start looking at these conversations, one feels that it's important to look at the cultural barriers. The social economic aspects are deeply linked and entrenched in the kind of cultural settings and spaces that we come from. So there have been initiatives where local language content, where stories and anecdotes, where you're creating safe spaces where women can just talk, come and start sharing experiences. So that baby steps, those little steps of the equal access to the internet, and then to start looking at how the internet is shaping choices and allowing them to make informed decisions. That even starts with small conversations around reproductive health, rights that women have, even access to local laws and the understanding that being beaten up every day is not okay, it's not acceptable. So when you start coming online, one of the biggest challenges and let's talk about some numbers. So as far as telecom is concerned, India has over 1 billion connections. As far as the internet is concerned, we're still at a mere 28%. Out of that, only 26% are women. So when you're looking at enablers, when you're looking at economic opportunities and progress, it's equally important to build in these safe spaces and also conversations around empowerment, conversations around the fact that there will be no chilling of speech once you come online. So the social stigma of reclaiming public spaces and then becoming your own person and then actualizing your potential and your ability for economic development and also self-expression. So that agency and that voice. So some of the work that we're doing in India includes working with business and associations and chambers, where the idea that you're entitled to be your own person is what has been seeding the conversation around economic empowerment and self-development. And yes, funding isn't hugely important part of it. If you're not at the table, you're bound to be on the menu. So this is very, very critical. When corporations such as Google come together and they empower, however small the contribution, it goes a long way. I'll rest here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sui. I think we're going to get a chance to hear from Rima via voice. Since that worked well for Kate, we're going to try it with Rima now. Hi, Rima. Can you hear us? Wonderful. Nice to have you. We can hear you. Thank you for persisting. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing that with us. It's a great contribution to our discussion so far. I hope that you can continue to listen in. I'm very pleased to announce that we have our next speaker who's been able to join us, get the snow in the lineup. We have Asma Enaifi from Orange in Tunisia to talk a little bit about their corporate activities and experiences on digital economic empowerment for women. Asma, thank you.
Hello everyone. Je vais parler en français, donc il va y avoir la traduction, je pense. Je me présente, je suis Asma Nefer, je suis directrice des relations extérieures de la RSE et de l'innovation chez Orange Tunisie. On a mis en place à partir de 2010 une stratégie de responsabilité sociale avec pour mission essentielle de soutenir la Tunisie dans sa transformation digitale. On a mis en place la première école du code en Tunisie en octobre 2010 et aujourd'hui on gère une communauté de 10 000 développeurs et designers dans cette école. L'école est à Tunis et dans plusieurs zones en région en Tunisie. Donc on fait une discrimination positive dans cette formation en faveur des femmes, des jeunes filles et des enfants filles. Donc, à partir de l'âge de 5 ans jusqu'à l'âge de 30 ans, on les forme au code parce que en 2030, 85% des nouveaux métiers ne sont pas encore créés. Mais ce que nous savons, c'est qu'ils utiliseront le digital. Donc, notre participation, c'est à travers ces formations au code, de les pousser à travailler et à avoir un emploi avec du digital et du numérique. Ça, c'est le premier programme. On a un programme pour les adolescentes entre 10 et 18 ans. On les forme au développement mobile, mais pas uniquement. Ils doivent développer mobile et citoyen en faveur de leur communauté. Donc, ce programme, on le fait en partenariat avec Technovation International et l'ambassade des États-Unis en Tunisie. On forme 1000 filles sur une année entre 10 et 18 ans pour créer des applications mobiles. Notre objectif, c'est que ces filles-là, à 18 ans, ils choisissent au niveau de leur orientation des formations technologiques.
Oui. Just to make it easier for those who don't speak English, I'm going to just quickly summarize a little bit about what you said, and then we'll carry on, if that's okay. So very, very briefly, for those of you who didn't follow the French, I just want to let you know that Asma's talking about their digital centers program, and they're doing training. It's largely focusing on digital skills training with women, and then also a program with adolescents. So they've trained so far 1,000 young women between 10 and 18, helping them develop mobile applications.
Yes.
So I'll let you carry on in the details of that.
Des formations citoyennes. Donc, elles doivent créer des applications qui vont faciliter la vie à la communauté des adolescentes.
Okay, so these training programs are actually focused on society activities. So they're looking for them to create mobile applications that are oriented towards engaging adolescents well in society.
Okay. Et le dernier programme, c'est les maisons digitales, Digital Houses. C'est fait pour des femmes qui ont un métier, artisanat ou n'importe quel métier, qui ont une connaissance particulière. C'est des maisons qu'on a ouvertes. On a 14 maisons digitales aujourd'hui en Tunisie. C'est des formations aux nouvelles technologies. L'objectif de ces formations, c'est de produire des plateformes technologiques pour mettre en avant la production de ces femmes-là dans l'artisanat. Et donc, c'est des jeunes filles qui vont former des femmes un peu plus âgées, mais qui ont un certain métier, et produire des plateformes pour ces femmes-là, pour que ces femmes ouvrent leurs propres projets. Donc, c'est des start-up féminines. Là, on vient de lancer 12 maisons digitales en Tunisie. Et on a, à partir de ce programme-là, on a lancé la première plateforme numérique en Tunisie. C'est une plateforme qui met en relation les artisanes entre elles et qui promouvoit les produits artisanaux tunisiens de ces femmes-là. Cette application a été lancée cette année, en 2017. 3 mois après ce lancement, 70% des revenus de ces femmes ont augmenté de 70%. Donc, juste en 3 mois, et ce n'est pas encore une plateforme e-commerce.
I'll just explain that. So this is a really exciting program. They're doing the sort of digital house, it's called, where they bring in artisans, and they have young women actually who are training older women who are producing artisanal products, and they're actually building the platforms, the sites for these women to put their products on market. And so once the young women are training the older women, they're able to present their products to the community. And they've launched now a digital platform with the different products on it. And as a result, they've increased the sales and revenue return of these artisans by 70%.
Voilà. Et aujourd'hui, notre objectif, c'est que cette plateforme passe sur toute la zone où Orange existe, donc toute la zone OMEA, donc Afrique et Moyen-Orient. Et la spécificité de tous ces pays d'Afrique et de Moyen-Orient, c'est l'artisanat. Ils ont un point commun à l'artisanat, et donc cette plateforme, on veut l'agrandir sur toute la région Afrique et Moyen-Orient pour que ces femmes, entre l'Afrique, le Moyen-Orient et la Tunisie, les femmes peuvent travailler ensemble, peuvent produire ensemble et surtout promouvoir les produits des différents pays au niveau de l'artisanat. Le but, bien sûr, c'est l'autonomisation financière de la femme, parce que nous sommes persuadés qu'en autonomisant, qu'en donnant la possibilité aux femmes d'être autonomes financièrement, on réglera beaucoup de problèmes de la société tunisienne, pas uniquement en Tunisie, mais toute la région. Plus la femme sera autonome financièrement, plus elle aura confiance en elle, plus au niveau de sa famille, elle pourra tenir sa famille, et moins il y aura de terrorisme. Ça, c'est peut-être très petit comme réflexion, mais nous sommes persuadés que la femme aura et devra avoir une place très importante dans les sociétés à venir. Et je pense qu'à partir de cette année, je vois que les Nations Unies, l'Union européenne, la Banque mondiale, tout le monde est en train de travailler sur l'autonomisation financière des femmes. Il doit y avoir une raison, ce n'est pas fait comme ça, et je pense qu'on est dans les années de gloire de la femme, et je l'espère pour nous toutes.
All right, super. So I'm going to be very brief in explaining that, but it's a very, very strong point, which is there's some excellent work going on across the North Africa, Middle Eastern region with this initiative where these women are able to work together across borders on these projects and to help exchange ideas and information, but also to work together, cross-promote and trade. And that a large motivator for this, one of the large goals, is the financial autonomy of women. And that the orientation by pursuing these activities and enhancing the financial freedoms of women, there's this pursuit of reducing some of the problems, both for those women individually, boosting their confidence, enhancing their empowerment within the family, and helping to reduce some of the social problems. And Asma, I share your optimism that we are in an age of advancing and really addressing this very important issue of women and working across all of the United Nations countries and stakeholders. So I'm going to now open it for questions from the floor or additional remarks. If you have a question for any of the speakers so far, I just invite you to mention your name and your organization's stakeholder group, and feel free to jump in.
Hello, good morning. I'm Karika and I'm a youth at IGF fellow from Internet Society. So my question is this: for older women, especially in developing countries, it's usually very difficult to acquire digital skills. So what can be done to bridge this gap, especially with regards to older women who are not acquainted with technology, unlike younger women who relatively have easier access to technology? Thank you.
All right. Maybe we could collect a few questions if there are others in the room who have questions. Yes, please.
My name is Amr Mustafa. I work for UDIT, an organization based in Yemen, and we work on women empowerment programs. One issue that I want to hear an answer for is the culture of internet. Where I come from, internet as a thing is not very accepted in the culture. So we still having some issues talking to people to use the internet, let alone women. And well, I have heard some impressive examples in India and maybe other countries, so I would like to hear more on how did they go along this problem. Thank you.
Excellent question. Okay, so are there other people with questions? Yes, please. And then I'll go here and then I'll go there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Noha and I'm a youth at IGF fellow by Internet Society, and back home I work at Dell EMC as a data storage analyst. My question here is how to encourage the private sector to create work from home jobs or to be more flexible with women, because I see many women leaving the job because they couldn't maintain a work-life balance. So how to encourage private sector to be supportive to women. Thank you.
Great. And we have another question at the end there.
Yeah. My name is Abu Bakar Karsan. I am from Tanzania, working with the Union of Tanzania Press Clubs. This is an NGO of the media. My question is, what can we do regarding the cultural difference or cultural enslavement of women, whereby men own all the power, the gadgets of internet, whereby they decide at what time the women should use the internet or should use the equipment that are being used for internet. Is there any way we can do to try to help, especially those women coming from marginalized society?
Great. Okay. So I think we've actually come to a common ground of these questions, a really interesting questions, and I will ask our panelists if there's anyone who wants to chime in. At the moment, I'll just see if either Kate or Rima are interested. Do you want to jump in, Joyce? Thanks.
Thank you for the very difficult questions. Seriously now, I mean, they're very difficult questions because they go beyond just the internet. The questions that you, at least three of them, actually go beyond the technology itself. It's a cultural issue. I have a 6-year-old, and almost 6, as he says. It's a boy, Luca, and it's interesting because, especially on the last question, I see that it's something that comes from very young age. So at home, I work, I travel, we share duties at home with my husband. I'm very, very fortunate, although I'm told I should not say that because that's the way it should be, and it should not just be relying on fortune. But I feel very fortunate because we have a very strong balance at home between my husband and I to actually carry the load, as we call it. Having said that, so we raise our son in the same way. Having said that, one day he came at home and he said, we were coloring, his favorite color is red, and I handed pink out to him, and he said, no, that's a color for girls. And so it startled me, and I said, well, it's a color like any of the others. He's like, no, this one is for girls. We've never actually told him that at home, but his friends, his teachers, his after-school companions actually told him that there are things for girls and there are things for men or for boys. When you look at Lego, I'm going to point at a brand, but if you look at Lego and you look at the online games, because we have a little tablet at home where he plays his games, I would say 99% of the games you find are targeted at boys. When you look at Lego offline, very often it's very hard to even find a girl, little Lego girl, superhero, sorry, or whatever they play with. It's much easier to find Star Wars and fighting stuff to actually play with, and it goes online and offline. And so from a very young age, it's actually told to children that technology is for boys. And that translates to how they actually choose their career afterwards, because they are told that that's not for girls. Girls should do the pink stuff. And so I think that to really have change, it's not going to be a solution for today or even tomorrow. But if we look at, take even 2030, it's 15, less than 15, but the kids would be 12 years old, more or less, which is when they start making choices on where they want to go with their career. If we start today and actually tell our children that, you know what, this thing and the stuff you do with it, not how you use it, what you do with it, how you create stuff, not how you just use it, is for men and women, for girls and boys. Please, ladies, do some scratch coding. Young girls, it's there. But we don't do that, and it's every single one of us, our responsibility to make sure that when our kids come home, if you have kids, if you have cousins, if you have nephews, when they come home and they say pink is for girls, you should fight it. That's what I do.
It struck me an example that our colleagues from GSMA shared once about a mobile activity in India where it struck me as a really good example of how we need the different stakeholders involved in this question. And as I said earlier in my remarks, this is a great example for multi-stakeholder engagement, because businesses can't come in and say, you know, we just want to do this and get into the market, as Will mentioned. They need to find local contacts, local people who understand, the civil society folks who can get the sense for users and society and cultural conditions that might not already be factored in, that governments need to work to identify what might be those barriers. Is it the fact that there's a community that is unbanked, and what is it that's creating those banking and financial access challenges? Is it a community that doesn't have access to land titles or the ability to take loans from an institution, or rights without a spouse or a male member of their family to access information or to go to community points and centers. So I'm going to ask our other speakers if you'd like to comment a little bit either on this question of really addressing the skills gap. I heard a lot in your interventions on skills. I think that was a really common thread in all of it, or the cultural dimensions. I think it would be good to perhaps hear more. We have a speaker from the floor, from Cuba.
Thank you, and really appreciate the organization of this panel. And actually, we are learning from what is happening in different regions, and we really thank the panelists for all of the experiences shared. I just want to mention that for us, the most important element is education, because it's the basic for any girl or any young entrepreneur to know what are their rights to access any market, what are their aspirations. And so for us, the issue of literacy is crucial, although for many developed countries, to talk on literacy is like, I don't know, it's like to drink a water glass, no? But it is first a basic right to have education at all levels with high quality as much as possible, so governments to be responsible for delivering high quality education, and then to create the capacities in very early ages, especially focus on girls, to identify which are their interests, vocational training, for themselves to identify who they want to be or where they want to go. And then the second phase is at the ages of 20s or 30s, then what you are mentioning on access to loans, access to microcredit, access to banks, access to land property. So for them to have the full capacity to enter in the market and to be ready to compete, because it's not only to have the access to, despite the size of their business. It could be very small business, like the colleague from India online was referring to very small business women. Despite the size or the capacity, what is important is really to compete. Maybe to compete with other small enterprises at the same level, but to have concrete results in an evolving manner. So for us, those are our comments. But really would like to thank you so much, all of the panelists. Merci pour l'expérience de Tunisia aussi. And we really are very happy because we are learning from the other regions. Thank you for the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, for that. We're going to need to wrap up now. What I would like to say is that I'd like to thank our co-organizers from Africa and EPAD and from SIWA for the effort. I'd like to definitely thank my colleague Sophie Tomlinson, who you've seen running around in the background, who pulled together the ideas, the people, and worked with our partners to prepare this session today. I think one of the things I want us to finish off with is that a lot of really interesting ideas were shared here today, and we can stop here and finish the conversation, or we can actually take what we've got here and contribute them to other sessions. Sophie and others will be working on a report to summarize this session. I heard a lot of questions about skills and cultural impacts, and I hope that from that report, it's something that people can take back to their countries and start a dialogue with and say, hey, I heard about this activity going on in India and this work going on in Tunisia, and here's how the government of Australia is actually tackling this issue right within all their different departments and setting measurable goals to drive towards progress, and that large companies like Google are taking heed of this issue, but not just walking in there and saying, hey guys, we have all the answers, but actually finding local partners and instilling themselves, and that we all have this really important role to play. So I hope that there are valuable insights that we can not just hear about today, but actually take and move this dialogue forward. So thank you all for participating.